It's been a while. Still childless? Such a defective product for not being able to show off any grandchildren. Betty and I have had our ups and downs in the past, but even now, thinking back on it, it still makes my blood boil. After all, the harassment I've faced from her about not being able to have children has been excessive. I don't know how desperately she wants grandchildren, but I really wish she would stop blaming me entirely for not being able to have children. To call someone a defective product is such a cruel way to put it. In a way, it's almost impressive. I'm currently at the park. And I'm not alone. My child is right over there. You should have seen the look on Betty's face when I said that. The grandchild she had been longing for, almost desperately, was right there. But reality is cruel. She hasn't realized that what she has done is coming back to haunt her, which is quite naive of her. It's about time she realized. I won't let her pretend to forget now. My name is Amy, and I'm a 45-year-old homemaker this year. I love children, and I got my teaching license in college and worked as a teacher at a public elementary school. Being a teacher had its tough moments, but there was also joy in being involved in the children's growth, which made me feel like it was my true calling. I was immersed in my work, but one day a childhood friend introduced me to someone. That was how I met John, who would become my husband. John was 25 at the time. He had graduated from university and was working as a social studies teacher at a middle school. He seemed to be struggling with the lack of romantic opportunities while working at a middle school. He hadn't really dated much, focusing on his studies during his university days. He mentioned that wanting to try dating women was what prompted him to talk to his friend. Although the ages of the children we teach at elementary and middle schools differ, being teachers, it was thought we'd be a good match and have a lot in common. When my friend introduced me to John, I wasn't seeing anyone and was dedicated to my job. So, I wasn't very enthusiastic about the introduction, but since my friend had gone to the trouble, I thought I should at least meet him once. I remember it clearly. We had arranged to meet at a cafe, but he was nowhere to be seen when the time came. I thought I'd wait another 30 minutes before leaving, but then I saw someone running into the cafe. Sorry to keep you waiting. John came in out of breath, looking like he could barely stand. No, it's okay. I was just getting a bit worried. Actually, a student in my class asked me for book recommendations. We got so caught up talking about it that I lost track of time. Hearing his response made me burst out laughing. At the same time, it was clear to me that he was not a bad person. If he could get so involved in a discussion about books with a student, it showed he was well liked. And the thought of John getting so caught up in recommending books to a student that he forgot his appointment was somehow endearing. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh so much when we've just met. But now, I really want to know more about you. Really? Seeing you smile made my nervousness just disappear. You were nervous? Yes, well, I didn't expect to meet such a wonderful woman, John said, somewhat bashfully. Oh, stop it. I'm almost 35, you know? I'm probably quite a bit older than you. I'm 25 now, but age doesn't matter to me. From there, John and I began to have deeper conversations, trying to understand each other. His passion for work, his compassionate nature, and most of all, the respect he commanded from his students became evident. It seemed that John also thought highly of me. It's only been a short while since we met, but I'd regret it if I didn't say this now. Would you consider a relationship with me? With marriage in mind? John, his face flushed, stared at me intently. I was set on my decision. With you, I think we could have a good relationship. I also have the same feeling as you. The time I spent with John was truly enjoyable. Even outside of our dates, I found myself wishing to be with John more, and it was then that he proposed to me. Since the first time I met you, Amy, I've always wished we could be together forever. Will you marry me? Yes. I feel like I can be happy with you, John. I answered without hesitation. After meeting each other's parents and completing all the formalities, it was decided that John and I would get married. To think I, who was so focused on my career just a while ago, would be getting married and starting a life with someone I love. In preparation for our marriage, we discussed our future careers and the possibility of having children. One of the reasons I fell for John was his respect for my thoughts and life choices. I want to continue working even after we get married. Above all, I love my job as a teacher. I can tell that much, Amy. But what about children? Personally, I'd like to have them if possible, but when it comes to actually having them, I want to respect your wishes. Of course, I want children too. It might be tough balancing work and family, but I hope we can have a child sooner rather than later. John and I agreed to try for a baby while managing our careers as best as we could. This is something beyond our control, a blessing we hope to receive. However, we were oblivious to the brewing storm that was about to disrupt our peaceful life. I'm off to the extracurricular activities for a bit. Okay, you'll be back by dinner, right? Take care. After seeing John off, I was having coffee alone in the living room when the doorbell rang. Oh, Amy. Hello? Ah, Betty, hello. John's at school for extracurricular activities. Is there something you need? At that moment, John's mother, my mother-in-law, Betty, seemed a bit disappointed, but she quickly turned to face me and suddenly said, "It's almost been a year since you got married, hasn't it?" "Yes, it has." "Thanks to you." "That's not what I mean. Before taking care of other people's children, you should have your own. If you can't even manage that, you might as well quit your job." Betty looked frustrated, as if her message wasn't getting through. That's quite sudden to say. Isn't it about time? Or were you planning to wait until the stable period? Children, you mean? You're 35, aren't you? Having 2 or 3 children is normal. The sudden talk about children took me by surprise. This isn't something I can control at will, and I decided to be honest about it. John and I have talked about it, and we'd be happy to have one. We'll let you know right away if I get pregnant. What are you being so nonchalant about? I don't understand how you can afford to be so leisurely about someday. I was taken aback by her nervous demeanor. After all, she seemed so calm and gentle when we met before our marriage. I'm sorry if I've offended you. But this isn't something I can manage on my own. So what are you saying? It's John's fault? Saying this, Betty briskly walked into the room. Then, from inside the room, I could hear Betty's voice. "What's this machine?" I bumped my foot into it. "I'm sorry, that's an air purifier." "An air purifier? This big?" "I have a house dust allergy, so I'm particularly careful about the air quality. I'm sensitive to house dust, and I start sneezing uncontrollably. I keep it to clean the air. I'm sorry if it's in the way." Then, Betty let out a heavy sigh. "Ha! Are you saying you're coddling yourself with that?" "Excuse me? Coddling, you say?" "Well, yes. All this talk about dust and dirt is why you're physically weak, right? And if you need to ventilate, just open a window. Unfortunately, this apartment is on the 2nd floor in an area with heavy traffic. I'm also concerned about the exhaust gases." "No, but there are exhaust gases, so I can't really keep the windows open that much. Relying on such a nonsensical machine. It's because of things like this that you can't have children, isn't it?" Betty, ready for a fight, looked at me as if she was convinced she was right. "Because you want children, don't you? Then come to my house next week." "But it's fine. My husband has already passed away, and I'm the only one there, so it won't bother anyone." It seemed like I had no choice but to go. The mere thought of it was depressing. The following week, I visited Betty's house. "Come this way." Betty pulled my hand and led me into the living room. As soon as I entered the living room, a strange scent hit my nose. Excuse me, but..." I hesitated, unsure how to describe the peculiar smell, and then she handed me a cup that seemed to contain something like tea. "Here. This tea is supposed to help regulate your body and make it easier to conceive. Am I supposed to drink this?" "What about yours?" "I'm not drinking it. They say good medicine is bitter, so I'm making myself be the bad guy by making you drink it." The strange color and scent made it seem impossible to drink. While I was struggling, she opened the zipper of my bag and shoved in something that looked like a paper bag. "What's this?" "Don't go through my bag like that. Please stop. Don't make it sound like I'm a thief." This tea works best if you drink 4 cups a day. And next, there's this. Betty then dragged me to the yard. Seeing a mountain of laundry, I was puzzled. What's with all the laundry? The gauze towels, small clothes, and bibs didn't seem like they belonged to Betty. I got them from an acquaintance. They say that handling and washing children's items can make it easier to conceive. It's also good practice for when you have children. Then, she brought out a large tub and a washboard. They say if you wash with all your heart, the child will be happy to come into your womb. I was left speechless as she confidently walked back to the living room. Indeed, I do think about having children, and John and I have talked about it. But why is Betty in such a rush, despite our decision to take our time and not force anything? I was furious, but I couldn't just leave without doing anything. As instructed, I washed the pile of children's clothes with a washboard and hung them up to dry. Betty, I'm done. Then come back the day after tomorrow. Just like today, come over and wash. But I have work the day after tomorrow. Work? You can make time before or after work, can't you? If you really want children, you should be willing to make some sacrifices. Being stubborn, I followed Betty's instructions out of spite. After school, I would go to Betty's house late at night and diligently hand-wash the clothes of children I didn't know, in the dark. My hands became rough from washing so many clothes in the cold. Despite using hand cream, my hands quickly became chapped from the dryness. What happened to your hands, Amy? John looked at me with concern. I hesitated to tell him the truth. To me, it felt like an outdated superstition, but for John, it was something his mother was doing. I was worried about speaking ill of his mother, especially since he also wanted children. Actually, your mother has been asking about when we'll have children. She told me that hand-washing children's clothes can help with conception. So I've been going to her house every other day to wash them. John looked at me incredulously. What's that? Does she seriously believe doing such things will lead to having children? John seemed to ponder for a moment before decisively speaking up. I'll talk to my mom about this, so you don't have to go there anymore. Actually, she has a decent inheritance from my father and had said before that she wanted to try living on her own. Not to rely on me or her future grandchildren. Also, I think I should visit a doctor. A doctor? Why? Because having children isn't just a woman's issue, right? Maybe the issue is with me, and it's better to know, don't you think? I admired this about John. He would consider my troubles as his own and think through them together. Thank you. But don't overdo it. It's for you, Amy. It would be harder to stay silent while all this is going on. However, Betty wasn't going to settle down just like that. I talked to Mom. You don't have to go to her house anymore. Thank you, John. I'm sorry for putting you through this. No, don't worry about it. Actually, it seems like the difficulty in conceiving might be due to me. John spoke with an apologetic tone. But the doctor said it should be okay, with medication and regular checkups. Let's see how it goes for a bit, and if nothing changes, we'll think about what to do next. It seemed like the issue was resolved for the time being, but it wasn't over yet. Sometime later, a package arrived at our house. The cash-on-delivery package was from Betty. Upon opening it, there were several books and a lengthy letter. The letter expressed anger about the conversation I had with John regarding Betty. The books were on pregnancy and parenting, and they seemed quite old. Honestly, I felt a mix of anger and disbelief towards Betty's actions. John seemed to feel the same. I told her to stop, and she's still doing this. What should we do with these books? Honestly, even if she says to read them, Mom must be blinded by her desire for grandchildren, not seeing anything else. I'm truly sorry for making you go through this. After some thought, John chose his words carefully. Being caught between me and Betty must have been difficult for him. My mom is important, but I want to protect my wife, Amy, the most. If it means hurting you, then we need to reconsider our relationship with her. But she's still your mother. I don't want you to regret anything if something happens. It's unavoidable for ceremonies, but we don't have to interact beyond that. I'm really sorry for not noticing earlier. John apologized deeply. We decided to minimize contact with Betty, except for necessary ceremonies, and to block her calls and refuse her packages. John seemed to be sending her some money personally, but that was between them, so I chose not to say anything this time. For a while, we lived peacefully without seeing Betty. John said, "Stress is the worst for your health, and keeping distance from her might have been for the best." It was about a decade after Betty's problematic behavior. I was leisurely sitting on a park bench, sipping coffee. While I was enjoying my coffee for the first time in a while, a voice came from behind. "Long time no see. Still childless? Such a defective product for not being able to show off any grandchildren." For a moment, I couldn't recognize who it was. But even though she had become much thinner and smaller, it was Betty. To demean someone as a defective just like that, some people really don't change over the years. Her scornful gaze made the warm coffee I was savoring suddenly taste cold and bitter. It was a stark reminder of how emotions can drastically alter our sense of taste. Betty. What's the meaning of not showing your face? You didn't tell John anything unnecessary, did you? It's not like I meant to. Betty said, poking the ground near my feet with her cane. What's your intention, going so far as to avoid your husband's mother like this? While nagging incessantly, she scrutinized me from head to toe. Sitting here all elegant in the park, sipping coffee by yourself, you must feel pretty good, huh? Since the day Betty commanded me to wash a stranger's baby clothes, nothing about her has changed. And yet, I had spent the last 10 years peacefully without encountering Betty. I wish we could avoid meeting, but I gathered my courage and spoke up. My children are right over there. Betty appeared momentarily puzzled, but then burst into raucous laughter. She was laughing so hard, showing her teeth, as if she was about to roll on the floor laughing. Is the idea of me having a child that ridiculous to her? Betty must have always assumed that it was impossible for me to have children. That's probably why she feels comfortable behaving this way. It's her prerogative to believe that happiness comes only with children, but I wish she wouldn't impose her values on me. Then, suddenly turning serious, she glared at me. I braced myself for what she might say next. What a sudden claim. Aren't you significantly older than John? There's no way you could have children. Indeed, I am older than John, but it's unfair to be so categorically told that I can't have children. After all, there are many couples with age differences who have children without issue, even later in life. I took a deep breath, ready to express my feelings. So? Then, Betty placed her index finger on my lips. With her finger raised pointedly, she glared at me as if to say, "Don't say another word." So you should have just done as I said. I don't know what you told John, but you made him run away by saying unnecessary things. A cursed person like you couldn't possibly have children. I felt the weight of Betty's pressure intensely. After 10 years of estrangement, it was honestly frightening. The thought of being overwhelmed by this pace filled me with anxiety. As Betty berated me, children approached from a distance, looking at us with worried expressions. I felt terrible for making them see me like this. Mom? What's happening? Is this lady someone you know? This person is. I hesitated about telling Emily and Emma the whole truth. Despite my bitter memories, Betty is their grandmother. Should I keep them apart based solely on my personal feelings and reluctance? I was unsure how to introduce her. Emily and Emma had never met Betty, nor had I ever mentioned her, so they wouldn't suspect she was their grandmother. Then, Emily and Emma started whispering to each other. They seemed to be trying to whisper, but I could hear them. Emma. Do you think this lady might be? Right? Emily, do you think so too? Because she was here the other day too, it's definitely her. Betty, pretending not to notice their whispering, tried to approach Emily and Emma. She reached out with trembling hands, but the two looked at her with indescribable expressions. Indeed, to Emily and Emma, she was an unknown old woman. Suddenly being approached with a trembling hand must have been quite frightening. Could it really be John's children? My grandchildren? Betty moved even closer to Emily and Emma as if it was a touching reunion. Then, Emily and Emma took a couple of steps back and said to Betty. You're the nagging old lady from the convenience store, right? What do you mean? Are you sure? I thought the same. I was confused as they suddenly became excited. She's always at the convenience store near our swimming school. Right. We always see her yelling at the clerks. What's going on? The lady from the convenience store near our swimming school. She's famous for always yelling at the clerks to get her money back. Exactly. She only yells at the younger people, but she doesn't say anything when the manager with the name tag is there. This was new to me, but it was clear she chose her targets for her tirades. It was as if she only attacked the weak. I'm just teaching them that they should listen to their elders. I'm doing the right thing. Such. Emily and Emma looked at me. Perhaps thinking I was being unjustly accused by the nagging old lady from the convenience store, they suddenly sprang into action. Mom hasn't done anything wrong. Please stop. Betty, pretending not to hear, moved closer to them. For Betty, meeting Emily and Emma must have been a moment filled with emotion. This is evident from the tears welling up in her eyes. Really, my grandchildren? Well, since we've met, let me have a good look at your faces. Don't come any closer. If anything happens to Mom, I'll sound this. Emma said, brandishing a personal alarm. Seeing the brightly colored, large personal alarm, Betty seemed to shrink back. Anyone would be taken aback if threatened with the sounding of an alarm. It's not often that a grandmother is treated like a suspicious person and faced with a personal alarm by her own grandchildren. I instinctively tried to ensure the safety of the two. Then, Betty began to tremble violently. Such. The shock must have been great for her, being treated as a suspicious person by her long-awaited grandchildren. Betty, trembling, seemed much smaller. However, what concerned me more was something else. I decided to press further and started a conversation with Betty. According to Emma and others, you keep demanding refunds at convenience stores, right? Why is that? Well, because I'm being given stuff that's just not usable, and it's a hassle. Betty suddenly became defiant. She spoke as if she hadn't done anything wrong at all. I decided to ask Betty the very question she would least want to hear. Are you having money troubles, Betty? Is that why you can do such embarrassing things in public? What? Embarrassing? How dare you speak to your elder like that? She thinks she should be respected, which is why she can say such things. But she didn't seem to like that I hit the nail on the head and appeared somewhat flustered. But usually, people would be too embarrassed to be so bold with just the young clerks. You're quite something to not feel that, Betty. Enough. Be quiet. Betty gritted her teeth in frustration. Then, Emily made a curious remark. This person always comes in with an empty container, demanding a refund and yelling loudly. That figures. Waving an empty container and shouting about it must be quite the scene. What? What are you planning to do with an empty container? I don't really know. But she was saying something about doing this to a penniless old person. I realized these were the children's words. Are you in financial trouble by any chance? Yes. It's awful, getting old and running out of money. As far as I remember, Betty's house was overflowing with branded items. She probably squandered the entire inheritance from my father-in-law. It must be hard living in financial difficulty. If you understand, could you send me a little money? $1,500, or even $1,000 would do. I dodged Betty's approaching gaze and said, I must decline. What? After all that has happened, expecting help now is a bit much, don't you think? Then, Betty glared at me with frustration. You must be heartless. To not extend a helping hand to a frail old person like me. She still seems to think it's her right to be helped. But there's no need for that. You've brought this all on yourself. How pitiful for these children to be raised by someone like you. Then, Emily and Emma stood in front of me and addressed Betty. We're not pitiful at all. We love our mom, so stop saying such horrible things. If you keep saying such terrible things, we'll really go to the police. Betty was lost for words at the sudden retort from Emily and Emma. She must have been shocked, especially by the grandchildren she desperately wanted, threatening to go to the police. I wouldn't be able to stand it if I were in her shoes. If that's the case, shall I give you what you really need, Betty? Really? Just wait a moment, please. I ran to a nearby store and came back with something. What is this? Do I look old enough to need something like this? I placed adult diapers in front of Betty. The package, boldly labeled Comfort Care Diapers, was enough to intimidate Betty. Betty's face turned beet red with anger. Her face was so red, she looked just like a boiled octopus. Do you remember making me wash baby clothes until my hands were chapped? Saying it was a practice and a prayer for when you have kids, even though I couldn't have children? Betty looked somewhat uncomfortable. After mumbling for a bit, she whispered softly. I did it thinking of your well-being, and I really wanted a grandchild. All my friends had grandchildren. And I was the only one left out. So, it's the same with me then. For your sake. And wanting a grandchild just because others have them, is that a child's mentality? Betty glared at me, clearly frustrated. Treat someone like an old person or a child, and you'll see what happens. It's quite convenient for you, isn't it? Okay, for you but not for others. Then, I heard John's voice from behind. He had come upon us by chance. You're not still harassing Amy, are you? Harassment? That sounds terrible. It was just a little. I explained the earlier conversation to John. It seems your mother is out of money. She's been causing trouble at the local convenience store. When I visited her house before, it was filled with branded bags and wallets. John's usually calm expression turned stern. Mom. Weren't you the one who said you'd live off Dad's inheritance without bothering anyone? And didn't you promise not to approach Amy anymore? No. Seeing Amy was just a coincidence. How could it be a coincidence? In such a large park, and a children's park at that, running into Amy just by chance, who would believe that? Betty fell silent. John had hit the nail on the head. You've always loved buying branded items, are you still doing that? Well, I just bought bags and shoes to match the occasion, and it kind of added up. I was even sending you some money from my allowance, and to think you were buying so many bags and wallets. I told you to only buy what you need. Didn't I? I feel betrayed. Then, Betty clung to John. This is all a misunderstanding. It's not true. What's the misunderstanding? The lie? It's clear now that you're a liar. Don't contact me anymore. And obviously, no more allowances. John turned on his heel and didn't look back at Betty again. Betty collapsed on the spot. Being rejected by her own son, she might never recover. If only you had had child sooner. If only you had them while I was still around to see. Well, it's not like I had children for you, Betty. I left those words behind and headed home with Emily and Emma. I never wanted to see her again. I thought I wouldn't. I had warned Emily and Emma to be careful of Betty when going to and from school or swimming school, but they never encountered her. One day, when I had almost forgotten about her, the hospital called. A few days after our encounter, Betty had tripped over a step at a nearby supermarket and fallen. When I went to the hospital at their request, Betty was there looking diminished in her bed, along with the supermarket manager and a police officer. Betty had unfortunately broken her leg. Upon inquiring, it seemed she had been secretly taking items from the ready-made food section and had been watched by the store staff. No, this is that. I don't want to hear excuses. It's embarrassing, so please don't contact us again. What can I do? John used to send me money, but that stopped. I was at a loss for words. And nobody would give me your contact info, I was just so lonely. I suppose so. Apparently, she had tried every possible way to get in touch with me again. She must have been asking around, hoping someone would disclose our whereabouts. Betty always believed that if she asked, people would comply. However, I had taken precautions beforehand. I had informed various parties about Betty's behavior and the unpleasant experiences in the past, while also asking them not to give out my contact information. I didn't even want to imagine encountering someone as self-centered as Betty again. It turned out that no one had given Betty our contact information. I heard that some had even blocked her calls, which suggests she was quite disliked among her acquaintances. Anyone would surely keep their distance from such a person. Given her character, it wasn't surprising to hear she was blocked by some. In the end, Betty spent her days in the hospital alone, feeling lonely. Apparently, she lashed out at the hospital staff due to her stress and was severely reprimanded. As long as it stops there, it's fine, but who knows what the future holds. Continuing to rampage without realizing how much she is disliked is typical of Betty. I am living happy days with Emily, Emma, and my husband. I was worried about what would happen when we unexpectedly met Betty in the park, but I'm glad I took decisive action. It was a good decision to discuss the issues with Betty with my husband properly. We sought treatment together as a couple, and as a result, we were able to meet our 2 daughters. I've also clearly understood that not cherishing people like Betty can eventually come back to haunt you. Mom. Come here, quick. Mom, you're so slow. Emily and Emma are beckoning me with bursting smiles. I rushed over to catch up with them and gave them a big hug. I want to cherish and live these happy days with Emily, Emma, and my husband, savoring our happiness.